What can coffee, cameras, and safety razors teach us about gratitude? Well, we're about to find out in this inaugural episode of the Gratitude Journal. Okay. The mistake I just made kind of proves my point. And I'll get to my mistake here in just a little bit. But I've really been struggling all year to figure out how to make a visual version, a video version of this audio podcast that I've been trying to contribute to over the past several years. And I kind of kept coming back to, like, what am I an expert in? Am I an expert in gratitude? No. I mean, I'm just learning about it myself. So in this age of following content creators on YouTube, and I follow a good many of them, I have been trying to size up what I could possibly say about gratitude that somebody else either hasn't already said or something that someone who is an expert would say, and I'm not an expert. I mean, for instance, I love coffee. I love it. In fact, so much so that I started roasting my own beans last year. And this Papua New Guinea Morita is something that I roasted just a couple of weeks ago. Oh, man, this is like really, it smells so good. But I maybe have done 70 roasts. That does not make me a master roaster. So I can't really say anything about coffee. I can watch other people who are experts. I think they're experts about coffee, but I can't claim to be that kind of expert. Again, all summer I kept thinking, is there something I can say to someone in, say, 10 minutes about gratitude? The way somebody would say to me, using this razor, for instance. Lately, this year, I've been getting into wet shaving. If you've never done wet shaving or shaving with a safety razor, it's pretty wild. And so it was my attempt, after reading about all these environmentally conscious things I wasn't doing, that all these cartridges that I was sort of shoving into my trash, which would eventually go into landfills, rather than do that and save some bucks, because, as you know, cartridges are expensive, why not try the good old-fashioned safety razor, the same kind of razor that my father shaved with, that I remember him cutting his face over and taking little bits and pieces of Kleenex, putting them and dotting them around his face. And so I've been watching the experts talk about, safety razors and shaving with a safety razor and how to properly do it. Look at this thing. It's beautiful. This is a Mula. And I can't remember the name. It might be R51. I can't remember it. But I was just so entranced by the rose gold color on the handle. And it just, like, it's so weighted beautifully. It feels wonderful. But I'm not an expert at that, so I can't really talk about it. But I follow a lot of creators who are. So how does this relate to gratitude? I don't know. I mean, I'm grateful to follow these people. It's like cameras. I mean, I do camera stuff for a living, but the errors that I make, like the one I just made 10 minutes ago, where I recorded this wonderfully eloquent speech. I pontificated on gratitude like you wouldn't even believe. And then I realized that not only had I not turned the record mechanism on the camera that you're... I like to break cameras too, but I also neglected to turn on my audio recorder. So I'm certainly not an expert in that, but it's what I do for a living. So I'm trying to teach myself and to learn new things. So I'm not really an expert at that. So I'm not an expert at coffee. I'm not an expert at doing a safety razor, and I'm certainly not an expert at cameras as long as I keep pushing them over and damaging the camera body so that the lens no longer fits on. So what can I say about gratitude that I haven't said on a podcast episode, and enough about it to make it seem like you could invest 10 minutes of your time in gratitude? And I think the way I want to start this video version of a podcast here in talking about gratitude is, I think that gratitude can be thought of as thankfulness or showing appreciation for something that you already have. And at the beginning of the audio podcast, I like to say, and I say this at the beginning of the podcast, both as an introduction to the topic that I want to ramble on about, and as a reminder to myself as to why I'm actually doing this. And I think it's taking your day and trying to find a minuscule thing that you may not have noticed before that gives you an appreciation for what you have or what someone has given you. For instance, let's go back to coffee for a second. For months, I would walk into this coffee shop on usually Friday afternoon, and I would get a cup of coffee that I could take back to work with me. And this would sometimes happen on the weekends too, because if you have listened to the audio podcast, you know that my wife Donna and I have been on a particularly difficult and sort of challenging journey over the past several years when she was diagnosed in 2019 with early onset dementia. And, the Alzheimer's journey is, it's a rough one, certainly rough for her. And it's really sort of twisted my world around. But one of the things that we try to inject into our world is to spend some quiet time doing something that we both enjoy. Now, she hates coffee. She loves the smell of it when I'm roasting in the garage. But the taste of coffee just has never appealed to her palate. But she likes chai tea lattes. So we've been going to these coffee shops like on a Saturday afternoon to enjoy a coffee. And I noticed both during our visits together and on my Friday visit to the coffee shop down the street that I was asking this barista to make me a coffee as a pour over. And I don't like drinking coffee out of like a carafe. I don't like coffee that's been sitting around. And even when someone says, I just made a fresh batch of coffee, it's not the same as having it, created and made from scratch. And I really thought about this process because, yes, it takes about 10 minutes or more for me to wait around in that coffee shop on a Friday. And I would say to myself, well, this is a time for me to express gratitude for this because I get to sort of take a deep breath and think about my week. What is the weekend looking like? What else do I have to do to finish things up? And I began to see sort of a light, at the end of the work tunnel, even though I knew I was going to be working and doing things on the weekend. And it was my time to just kind of mellow out and say, I'm going to spend this 10, 12 minutes just focusing on me. And what I have learned, I think, a little bit, and what I'm trying to learn even more about, is that this gratitude journey really isn't about me. But I make this mistake of making it about me. Because here I was standing in this coffee place, focusing on what trials and tribulations I have encountered and the details of my work life and how I was going to better manage our world as, her primary caregiver. And yet I was asking this person who, yes, they get paid to work at this coffee shop, but the amount of time that this person was spending making my pour-over cup of coffee was pretty extensive. I mean, this person has to get that particular cup out. They have to grind exactly 31.5 ounces of beans. They have to get, the hot water, and then they have to, in a circular pattern, they have to dribble this water over my coffee beans. It's going to go in my cup. And they have to do it in such a way that their boss is watching them do this pour over coffee like an expert, and to do and take up their time to make my cup of coffee so that I and my taste buds extract more of the essence of this coffee experience. So I made them do that. I asked them to do that. I'm getting something for it. And it suddenly occurred to me when I was driving back several weeks ago that the act of me asking this person to perform this function above and beyond the call of duty, just because it's my preference, I really, had rarely shown them any extra gratitude by providing for them a tip. And I know tipping is a bad subject right now, but I had never really given them anything extra for it. But I think even more complicated in my thinking that bothered me the most is that I really had not looked at being thankful for their effort. And all I really looked at is the way their effort was impacting my world. So I think today, in this maiden voyage of the sort of video version of my gratitude journal audio podcast, which I'll leave a link to below. I always wanted to say that, leave a link below. Check out this next video. Ring that subscriber bell. All the things that all these people did. So I finally said it. Okay. It really wasn't all that great. Not nearly as great as this coffee. Or this shave that I'm going to have tonight. But I think the thing to think about is maybe trying to find a way to experience gratefulness and thankfulness for something small that may go unnoticed. Will I do a pour over? Probably, because I just really enjoy the way it tastes. I just really enjoy the extra care and concern because I do a pour over for myself. This is the way I make coffee. And I like it. And this just seems right to me. But I am a little more cognizant of the effort that this person whom I don't know, who I've just asked to perform a service, an extra service for me, without really expressing the proper amount of gratitude. And I think maybe that's something that we can focus on, in this series, is trying to find these small microscopic ways of feeling gratitude. So, thank you for checking out this video. I guess I'll figure out all the proper things to say. I know you can subscribe to this, and our granddaughter, Lauren, who has a channel on YouTube, I'll have to get some tips from her. And because she's very good and her channel's great, and I'll leave a link to that too. Maybe not in this episode because I don't know that I know how to do it. But and you're thinking, you don't know how to do that, and you're looking to operate this machine. I know, it's crazy. It's just an odd life that we experience some days. But I think this odd life is made better by being able to show gratitude. So I hope that you'll check things out in the future. In the meantime, I think I'm going to enjoy another cup of this Papua New Guinea Morita and enjoy the day. So here's to thankfulness, and here's to gratitude, and be careful out there.